This is the letter that Ryan wrote. Gabby, I wish I was at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we made, getting even more excited for the future, but we lost our future. I can't live without you. I've lost every day we could have spent together, every holiday. I'll never get to play with again. Never go hiking with TJ. I loved you more than anything. I can't bear to look at our photos to recall great times because it is why I cannot go on. When I close my eyes, I will think of laughing on the roof of the van, falling asleep to the sight of at the Crystal Geyser. I will always love you. If you were reading Gab's journal, looking at photos from our life together, flipping through old cards, you wouldn't want to live a day without her. Knowing that every day you'll wake up without her, you wouldn't want to wake up. I'm sorry to everyone this will affect. Gabby was the love of my life, but I know adored by many. I'm so very sorry to her family because I loved them. Honestly, I think there's bits and truths to this letter. I don't think it's the whole truth because he's a narcissist, but anyway. Also, I know I read the letter. It was very hard to read. There is parts I could make out, but on this rough draft, there's some that it don't say that, but I'd consider her younger siblings my best of friends. I'm sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well, a terrible grief. They loved as much, if not more than me. A new daughter to my mother, an aunt to my nephews. Please do not make this harder for them. This occurred as an unexpected tragedy. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the streams before it got too dark to see. Too cold. I hear a splash, then a scream. I could barely see. I couldn't find her for a moment. Shouted her name. I found her breathing heavily and gasping. And I knew I safely couldn't cure her anymore. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat. She was so thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't at the time realize that I should have started a fire first, but I wanted her out of the cold back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be, only knew it was across the creek. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small bump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrists hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little, lapsing between violent shakes. Gasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain, she would fall asleep and I would shake her awake, fearing she shouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start her whole painful cycle again. And then it really said that she was furious with him because he was the one waking her. She wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought that, like me, that if the fire would go out, she would fall asleep and she'd freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it is what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked. I was in shock. But from the moment I decided I took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her. I rushed home to spend any time I had left with my family. I wanted to drive north and let James or TJ kill me, but I didn't want them to spend time in jail over my mistake, even though I'm sure they would have liked to. I am ending my life not because of fear of punishment, but rather because I can't stand to live another day without her. I've lost our whole future together, every moment we could have shared. I'm sorry for everyone's loss. Please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and a daughter, the most wonderful girl in the world. Gabby, I'm sorry. I have killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. And look at the end of the note. He's such a... The end of the note. Please pick up all of my things. Gabby did not like people who littered.
The book was not the only bombshell dropped today. A little while ago, I spoke with the lawyer for the Petito family. He says there are several other pieces of evidence in the possession of the Laundrie's attorney, Stephen Bertolino, including a letter from Roberta Laundrie to her son, Brian. Here is some of what he told me.
Someone should ask him to release the letter that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie. That on the envelope says, "Burn after you read this."
So there was a letter from Roberta to Brian within the notebook?
No, it was not within the notebook. It was a separate letter.
That was found out there with the notebook, though?
My understanding is that the letter at one point had been in the van, and then it was taken from the Laundrie home during the time when the search warrant was executed.
So a letter from Roberta to Brian that said, "Burn this letter."
Yes.
You read it. And
Yes.
Were you able to read the letter?
Yes, I was. I'll tell you that I had an idea what was in the letter before I read it. I knew about the letter. I don't believe Mr. Bertolino knew about the letter, and the surprise on his face was very interesting as he read that letter.
That was
all
today.
I can say. He has the letter. He has the original of the letter, and I've asked him to maintain that for purposes of the litigation. I don't have a copy of it. I expect I'll be getting a copy of it. He wouldn't allow me to get a copy of it today, but within that letter is an offer from Roberta Laundrie to assist her son. I don't want to say more because I don't have the letter, but it's a pretty interesting, pretty odd letter.
So a letter from Roberta to Brian to assist her son, assist him to do what?
Let me back up and say there's no date on the letter. But it would appear that the letter was written between the time that Gabby was murdered and Brian committed suicide. There's scenarios presented by Roberta in that letter. For example, if you go to jail, I'll bake a cake and I'll put a knife in it or a saw in it. There was also something referenced in that letter about Gabby, and I'd rather not go any further. That at this point, the letter will speak for itself, and I don't want to paraphrase incorrectly what the letter said.
I understand. I just want to make sure I can report it correctly. So was she sort of offering to help him kill himself? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No. It was as I said, it was an offer that had to do with Gabby.
After she was already dead.
That's my belief.
And you can't say anything more about what that offer was?
I'm not comfortable without having it in front of me because I'll be paraphrasing, and I don't want to paraphrase something that serious.
Wow, very, very interesting there. Patrick Riley also told me that the notebook is not the only confession Brian left. He told me today there was a second confession on a, quote, digital device and possibly a third confession in written form. Riley says he has not seen those confessions yet, but the FBI told him they are somewhat different from the confession in the notebook that we've seen.